the second half of the meeting, and this is something that you all wanted us to do. We're going to run a series of breakout sessions. There's going to be 4 breakout rooms. And when we go to the breakout rooms, Alyssa, would you come on now and just tell us what the 4 breakout rooms are going to be and the topics that are going to be in each room? Because I know there's 4 of them. Can anybody hear me?
Yes, you're coming in fine, Jim.
Okay.
You ready for me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Would you just come up? I'm sorry, guys. I got knocked off my train of thought, and I'm not back with it. Would you just tell us what the 4 meeting rooms are going to be in?
Yeah, sure. Across the bottom of your Zoom bar, guys, there should be an option to look at the breakout rooms. There's going to be 4 options that you can join. Trick though, there's only 3 breakout rooms. The first one is going to be Jim's breakout room. He's going to go over Tableau order of operations and level of detail calculations. Sekou is going to cover some Tableau prep workflows. Eric is going to cover Tableau security. So if you guys want to join those breakout rooms, we have empowered you to do that. The 4th is actually going to stay here in the main room. I'm going to lead that one, and it's going to be on dynamic date calculations, doing month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year, very dynamic and easy for your end users. So join your breakout rooms or just stay put when that time comes to join my session.
Okay, fabulous. Hey, Alyssa, do you want to introduce our community moment right now? And
Sure.
we'll just dive right into the presentation.
Sure. Sean is joining us today for our community spotlight. Sean, do you want to give us a little bit of background about what you do and how you got into Tableau?
Yeah, sure. You can hear me, right?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Just wanted to make sure. Yeah, so I didn't really get into Tableau until about August of 2019. That's whenever I was exposed to it in grad school. And so when I was sitting in that classroom, which was, it's mainly on data visualization, I was talking, the professor was like, you can get jobs with this, Tableau thing. And I was like, what? And so I was like, wow, I'm going to go look for jobs to do Tableau because, I enjoyed it. And so now that's what I do. I work all things really Tableau every day I wake up. That's from Tableau prep, building dashboards, also Tableau server. All that stuff related. And I work for a company called Booz Allen Hamilton. And so I'm basically doing contract work in the DoD space.
Got it.
Yep, Tableau only. Yep.
Got it. When did you begin attending Tableau user groups or any kind of Tableau events?
That was actually the first event we had with this group, or the last, I think it was October. Someone correct me if the in person, that was the first time I actually had said join one. So
awesome, very cool. What kind of examples of kind of business questions you've been able to answer or problems you've been able to solve using Tableau at Booz Allen?
So I guess the people that who are the clients that I'm helping out, so one of those domains I'm helping in is kind of the financials. And so really being able to answer those questions of basically, where's my money? Where's it been spent? How much money do I have left over? What's my target spending point? So a lot of these questions around financials.
Got it. Very cool. I have a finance background myself, so I like those kind of questions.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have a favorite kind of Tableau projects you've worked on?
I would say one of the favorite ones I've worked with is from beginning to end, clients like, hey, I have this data, all this useful information. We have it. I don't know what to do with it, how to handle it. Excel crashes when I open it, or, all this stuff. It's like, whatever. So we basically, from beginning to end, we clean it. We've created some fancy dashboards, yet simple. But the reason why I'm really kind of bringing that up is that I also, out of that, I was able to make a Tableau story out of all these visuals and add some other details, because they showed me a PowerPoint they present every quarter to their leadership and to, and so I was like, well, first, just give me that PowerPoint and I'm just going to turn it all into a Tableau story where you just have to go hit and like download, and then there's your presentation. And so the reason why that's my favorite is they were so confused of like, wait, so all I have to do is go hit this download button. And that's the presentation that I've been doing for the last 2 years. Just like, because it would take them probably about 8 hours to put that presentation together every quarter. And sometimes they would have to do it extra. So basically the math probably works out to about 40 to 50 hours a year was spent making this report. And now you just hit download and it's ready for you before you can pour your coffee. So that was probably one of my favorite, just because it's impactful, it saves them time, and it's, visualizing data. So there you go.
Got it. Very cool. So as you kind of were learning Tableau, did you have any kind of favorite resources you could share with the group? Blogs, YouTube videos? How did you go about learning and getting as good at Tableau as you are?
Really nothing that really sticks out in mind. Tableau Public was a good place to go, because there was starting from scratch, not having a lot of examples of stuff. That's a good place to go just to try to get some ideas on what you might do. So I'm guilty of stealing some concepts from Tableau Public.
That's what it's there for. Okay. What about any favorite Tableau tips or tricks or Tableau shortcuts that you use a lot that you'd like to share with the group?
Okay, so hopefully this was in this counts, but I get these lists from these clients that says like, if this code is equal to this code and it's equal to this code, then it's like this. So like in the finance, it might be if this and this equals up, then it's like hypothetically gas money, right?
Got it. Yep.
But now we just imagine that this list is extremely long. Okay. And so after a time, you get tired of writing if statement and putting quotes or whatever, or case statement. I actually was doing in Excel. I don't know if anyone's ever done this or saw this. I don't know, but so I would like actually create like a column in Excel, and I would do like if else and just drag it all the way to the bottom, and then put like an equal sign, drag it all the way to the bottom, and then tell Excel to put quotes in like this like code, because in Tableau it'd be like a string. So basically just using Excel to like make it really, really, really fast, and then copy and pasting it into a like a calculated field menu. And so then copy and paste it. And so instead of going down writing like hundreds of like lines, you just tap and just let it all go to the bottom, and there you go.
Got it. It actually looks like we've got a question from Akshanka.
Akansha.
Akshanka. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, Sean, thank you for sharing your experience. I'm working on a kind of similar use case where I have to build a unique code for different vendors' codes. So like we receive vendor codes from different vendors, and we have to decide that which vendor is cheapest and good. Are they overcharging? Are they undercharging? Or something like that. So I'm in the process of developing a unique code that will be a synonymous for all the different parts of the material projects, and see that if basically I'm creating aliases like you mentioned, and I have to compare if this and this and this, and look for vendor A, B, C. Are they talking about the same item? Like for example, I named this unique code diamond. This diamond is equal to the diamond 1, 2, 3, 4. The vendor 1 is quoting, and the diamond 2, 3, 5, 6, or something like that. So I was thinking that if I create the alias, it should automatically looks up. And you shared your experience as you created if statement within the Excel. If this is equals to this and this and this, it means this, right? And is there in Tableau itself, or Excel is fine to do that? Or am I missing something?
Yeah. So I don't know if I was having a hard time hearing just a little bit with audio. So I don't know if anybody has anything with what was said.
I'm sorry, you didn't.
Yeah. I could hear, but I don't know if it's my headset. It just sounds like it's far, but
I
It sounds
heard that. I do some comparisons like that. And you can get into some really long calculated fields that way. If you're trying to capture everything in one calculation, what I've found to work pretty quickly is to create Boolean comparisons for the different conditions you're looking for, and then create calculated fields to sort of flag which conditions may be for the different vendors and such. So you sort of break it up, and the Booleans make it all happen pretty quickly in the calculated field. That's one way I've done comparing different categories between, for me, it's different providers, different physicians and such, or different departments,
Okay. Yeah, I'll,
conditions in different departments.
so first I should create the Boolean that checks.
Okay,
with-
I'm gonna suggest here that you get in Eric's
Yeah,
room and
we
maybe
can do
talk
this
to
in
him
a
about this
breakout room.
later. Yeah, join Eric's breakout room and he'll talk to you about this later.
Sure.
Alyssa, you want to carry on with the interview at this point?
Sure. Yeah. Really just one last question for you, Sean. What's kind of next on your Tableau to-do list? What do you want to learn more about?
it's a hard question.
Stumped you.
How to make data clean by itself. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, because I know you're doing the group, but kind of doing some more of the year type of kind of working with the yearly concept of stuff, like a year over year and all that stuff. But I haven't really touched that stuff too much. So I haven't really had a chance to really dive deep into those topics.
Got it. Yeah. I know coming from a financial background, they always want to be able to see quickly month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year, fiscal year over fiscal year.
Mhm.
So yeah, definitely a big deal. All right. Well, thank you, Sean, for your time and for your contributions to the group. Up next, sorry, Jim, did I just cut you off? Go for it.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Hey, Sean, I suggest you get in Alyssa's breakout room, because Alyssa's going to be talking about year over year calculations. Actually, yeah, you get to stay right where you are. You don't have to go in a breakout room. She's going to be talking about year over year calculations and how you go about doing those. So that'd be a good place to start. Hey, apologies, guys. I got caught a little off guard when we first started the meeting. I wasn't quite on my game today. Sekou is going to spend some time with us. He's going to talk about Tableau basics, some things that we really kind of need to know, and how we can go about using, the Tableau community to better understand Tableau. Sekou, are you ready to go?
I'm ready. I am
Okay.
on my screen. Great. Thank you so much, Jim, for the introduction. Bear with me today. I'm having crazy internet issues, so I'm on my hotspot. So if I'm frozen while I'm talking, it's not me. It is truly my internet that is acting up, but we're going to make it a good one. Today's going to be a good session. Thanks for joining. I'm Sekou Tyler, and I am a Tableau ambassador and part of the Tableau user group, and excited to really do Tableau 101. This is truly high-level, introductory level information ranging from Tableau Public to Tableau Desktop to Tableau Prep to even some Tableau Online if we get time to it, and even talking about different community initiatives. So we will get into it and just go ahead and talk about Tableau. So Tableau, what is Tableau, right? It's a product. We're all here at the Tableau user group. We understand what it is. But do you know that there are so many products underneath the umbrella, especially with the Salesforce acquisition, especially with the different things? There's a lot of stuff that is coming about in the Tableau reality. So basically, there's if you go on the front page, you'll see like all of these products. I'm sure most of us probably deal with Tableau Desktop and maybe Tableau Cloud or Server if we're pushing stuff up. So our bread and butter will be these first 3 products. But there's also a product, Tableau Prep, if you haven't used it, that's used for your cleaning up actual materials and doing some calculations. I think Concha, I hope I'm saying that correctly, could be leveraged for some of your calculations that you've done potentially. If you use a Tableau Prep, you do some of the calculations, the Booleans, you clean it up, your data source is clean, you can leverage that. There's also a lot of things in data management in Salesforce as well that is out there. So Tableau as a entity, as a ecosystem is growing rapidly. And I think it's really good for people who are in the Tableau, area, who want to evolve, is, understand what's in Tableau desktop, but also understand what's going on in an entire ecosystem. So I just like to call it out specifically that there's a lot of products that are here now versus when I even started in Tableau. So highlight what Tableau and different products. The biggest one of the biggest ones I should say is Tableau Public. So if you're not familiar with Tableau Public is basically Tableau's place where you can host public visualizations with public data. So I want to put an emphasis on Tableau Public. There's a lot of great places to get inspiration, connect with different people who are doing great stuff online, and just seeing how Tableau is evolving. So if you're not familiar with Tableau Public, you come in here, here's the first page of it, it's Tableau Public. If you actually click on go to Tableau Public, it will take you to another page. And then what this is basically highlighting the people who use Tableau and highlighting different visualizations, and then also using a concept called Visit of the Day. And basically the Visit of the Day is community voted, or even Tableau people, what have you. Someone has pushed a visualization out there and it has gotten so much recognition that it is on the front page of this page. So this is a great way to see really what's going on. You can see the trending visualizations as well, and just see, really who and the type of people who are producing stuff. I think Eric mentioned this in his talk last time. Sometimes you can go through here and there's a visualization or something that you like. You can click on their name, favorite it, or you can follow these people. So as you're going along in your Tableau journey, I personally come in here still and get a lot of inspiration in Tableau Public. So if there's, say, I want to do some trended analysis, or if I want to create something for a business dashboard, or maybe I'm not creatively there, I can come into Tableau Public and search what I'm looking for and get some inspiration as well. And it's also a great place to kind of connect and see different people and reach out to different people as well. So this is Tableau Public in a nutshell. It's free to download. So if we're thinking about different licenses that are available, Tableau Public is free. You are limited on the type of data sources that you can connect to. You can connect to local files, so you can connect to an Excel file, a CSV file, I think JSON and spatial files, and then I think you can only connect to Google Drive. So if you're trying to connect in something in a public data set or in a database, you won't have access to it in Tableau Public. And then all of it lives within your Tableau Public profile name. So if I were to come in here and even just search for myself, I think all of my visualizations will be under my name. Yeah, so when you're using Tableau Public, whenever you push something up, it will live here, and Tableau basically will host your information. And then from there, if you are doing any type of sharing or public consumption, you can hyperlink your stuff to, whether it's a blog or whether it's online or what have you. You have the ability to to share your information from Tableau Public. So this is just one way to use one of Tableau's products to actually use your Tableau as a product and to keep going with your journey and see what's going on. So the biggest piece, another piece that we have, is actual Tableau Desktop. I think a lot of people here use Tableau Desktop, and it's probably the bread and butter of the tool, and you connect and use everything. So the biggest piece with Tableau 101, have to be able to connect to a data set. So as I mentioned earlier, if I am in Tableau, this is Tableau actual desktop. And this is actually with the paid license. So I have a little bit more different options to what I can connect to. And I think sometimes, especially starting out with Tableau, you really don't realize the different type of options that you can connect to. So if we're just looking from the general basics of what can I connect to, if you're using Tableau Server or Tableau Online, you can connect to actual extracts that are living there. So from a pragmatic approach, people typically will push up a Tableau data source that is clean and in a good fashion, and then multiple people will create dashboards and visualizations on top of it. And that is what connecting the Tableau service is. You kind of have a metrics layer, you have a layer where your visualization, and it's a clean and confirmed and nice data set that you can create different visualizations on top of it. Here you have your actual file component. So if you come in here, you can connect to different file types. So as I mentioned earlier, Tableau public is Microsoft Excel, and then text. So if you're looking at CSV file, you can connect that way. JSON, access, PDF files. I don't recommend PDF files. If you're doing that, please don't do that. Somehow clean it up, export it, but you can connect to PDF files. You have spatial files, statistical files, and more. So if you are doing that, and then also different type of local files, but then here you can connect to a server. So this list is always growing when it comes to what you can connect to. And I highly recommend looking at different type of connections that are out there for you to connect to. I think that this list has definitely grown since I've started in Tableau. As you see here, there are 74 different type of connection types that you can connect to. Not sure everybody using everything, but as you see, this list is pretty comprehensive. You can do stuff from your standard relational database all the way to connecting to a Google Drive or Google Sheets and living and connecting to stuff within the cloud. So a lot of different options here that are available for you to actually connect to, because the biggest part of data visualization is connecting to data. So if you can't connect to data, or if it's easier for you to connect to data, you can start doing some of your advanced data visualizations that are out there. So from a Tableau perspective, we brought it in, we have our table, we have it connected. Now we know what our data looks like. If we come in here, and actually, when you're building out a Tableau dashboard, it's a pragmatic approach to building it out. Typically, you will create worksheets. So you create individual worksheets, and then from there you combine it to make an actual dashboard to where everything lives together. So the first part of that process is actually creating a worksheet. And one thing I think that Tableau does really, really well is in everything that we do, we're answering some type of question typically. So if you're getting an email or some type of response saying, hey, I really need this visualization, or I need this graph, I need this chart built out, typically you're breaking it down in two different components. You're using a dimension, which is basically a categorical type of information. So person, place, thing, location, the date, of different type of product, what have you. So a dimension is basically some type of category. And then from there, you're using some type of quantifiable measure. So sum of, count of, percentage of, or what have you. So I think a standard request that some people might get will be, hey, can you show me the total number of cells broken out by state? So while it's a lengthy word sentence, if you look at that sentence, you know you're looking for the total cells broken out by state. And what Tableau does really well is tries to help you differentiate that by colors. So if you look at this first table, which is orders, you see everything at the top in blue represents a dimension. So in that sentence that I just went through, I want to look at the total cells by state. We'll see that I have a location hierarchy, but if we look in here, the state lives in here. So we see that it is blue. So if I'm looking at the blue, what is my dimension? What are my categories? What am I trying to pull out? I know I need to bring in states. And then if I look at what my quantifiable measures are, we know that these below in green are my measures. And then you can also differentiate that as well because they have the pound sign. So you're saying that, hey, this is something that Tableau is assuming is something that is quantifiable. So it does it really well to kind of break up that how you receive a request into different sections. So, you know, my dimensions are at the top of this line and my measures are at the bottom of this line. So now when you're creating visualizations, if you're thinking in, all right, what are my dimensions? What are my measures? It kind of helps simplify that process. So just a quick example of that will be if I want to see the total sum of cells by state, if I just drag on my state onto rows. And also another thing here, this is where your information will live. So you drag on the information onto your columns and rows to see the information that you want to see. So in this example, my dimension is state. And then my cells, which is the green that I want to see, is if I drag it on top of here, I see now that I'm answering that question of my total sales for Tennessee is $30,000 and it's broken out. And that's what my information is. So I think when you're starting out, and there's different levels with starting out, and even that took me a long time. But if you're answering the question, what am I trying to show? What are my dimensions? What are my measures? That helps the process of being able to create different visualizations and understanding what it is that you're trying to categorize. So another thing that Tableau does really well is visualization, right? It's a top tier visualization tool. So right now we just created a worksheet, a table, which shows just the raw information. And I really want to stress that this is a great visualization tool, but if your data is incorrect, your visualizations will be incorrect. So I always try and highlight that, hey, look at your numbers, look at what it is that you're building out, look at the behind the scenes stuff, and then see if your data set is populating what you think it is, then put the visualizations on top of it. That has helped me along the way in my journey. That helps me with QAing and troubleshooting of just looking at the raw numbers first, and then how can I visualize it on top of it. I've seen instances, even within myself, where I started on the visualization front first, just saying, hey, how can I tell the story? But then my numbers were wrong. So typically, I like to see my numbers are correct, and then I put the visualizations on top of it. So just quick tip there. When it comes to actual visualizations, Tableau visualizations, basically you will have your blue pills, which are discrete, and your green pills are continuous. A lot of information about that out there. I'm not going to go really in depth about that, but again, kind of lives in the same line along the same line of thought of dimensions / categories. Understanding what it is that you're showing, but there's a lot of good stuff out there. And also when you look out there, you'll hear people talk about the pills, right? You have the blue pills, the green pills, and this is what they're referencing. So when you drag the pill on top of here, let's say I want to look at the sum of sales. Now this is brought onto my column. So now this is actually creating a visualization for me. If we look at our marks card, this is doing automatic for me. So it's automatically choosing what it thinks this visualization should be. If I wanted to come in here and say, change this to something different, line chart is not great for this, but if I want to change this to a square, I can change it to what I want it to be, or to a circle, or what have you. But basically your marks card is what an option for you to change what visualization is that you're showing. Another thing as well is there's two different ways to control your color on here. You can control it by a dimension, which again is a category that we talked about. So if I drag on one of my blue components on here, let's say I bring in region on the color, we see that this is now controlled by our dimension. So our dimension is central, east, south, west. And we know these are static dimension, well, not static, but these are categories that we have built out. So every time we're using this color and it belongs to the region, it will be that color associated with it. Or you can also control it by a measure. So it's using the quantifiable data to control your information. So if we brought in that same sum of sales onto color, we see now if we look at the legend, we see that the lowest value is 920 and the highest value is 457. So this is a quantifiable number that shows the range based on your quantifiable metric that you're using to show. Another thing as well, from just one-on-one best practice, is make sure you're using the right measure for your color. I've seen instances, I've done it myself, where I have a state and I have sum of sales up here. So I'm representing sum of sales, but then I drag sum of profit onto here and it's controlling my color. So my color is misleading to what I'm actually trying to display. So as you're looking at the color and looking at the things that you are creating, make sure you're using the right things for your story. Otherwise, your story will be misleading or you're telling something that will be incorrect. So this is how you quickly can create some graphs. There's also a great component up here at the top right called Show Me. So what Show Me is basically it can recommend, based on what you have up here, different type of graphs for you to actually create. So it's kind of like a starter kit. It's kind of like, I really don't know what it is that I want to show, but I know I need to bring in my sum of sales and I need to do it by state. And what are my options? So if you come in here, you select Show Me, you have the different components as well that will allow you to do that. So if I were to just change this to a heat map, it will try and change it automatically to a heat map for me. And then sometimes, like I said, click around and it can do different things. And it's just a really good starter kit for you for creating some visualizations. And another thing that Tableau does really, really well, and again, this is just kind of recognizing where things are, is understanding that you can do a lot of mapping. So if I'm looking at, I want to create a map of instead of showing it on a table, I actually want to show my sales per state using the mapping category. So instead of me just bringing it in this table, I know because of this map icon that I can use this as an actual mapping, and I can use this in my data source to show that visualization. So what you could do is just, let's just create a new worksheet. If you create a new worksheet, if I come in here and I double click state, then we'll see that now my state is populated. One thing to call out, if you're doing anything with data, if your data does not have whatever location it is that you're trying to display, you would not see a dot. So in this example, say my data set filtered out and it only had everything but Tennessee, I wouldn't have a Tennessee dot because it's not populated in my data. So again, the first part of data visualization is data. So understanding I'm creating this map, but I don't see Tennessee. Well, is it in your data set? So you go back to the source, you understand exactly what is showing. So always want to call that out specifically with maps as well, because you don't know where your information is. And then like I talked about earlier, you have a dimension or a measure to control your color. So if you drag in your sum of sales on top of this, you can then see that you are controlling your map. Same visualization as before, but now it's a map. And then I'm controlling my color with it with the same legend, 920 to 457. And then in our marks card as well, you have different components on here. Size you can control with a dimension or a measure. And then you have your label to where you can drag on different components. So real quickly, if we're looking at this map, there's nothing on here. There's no context. There's nothing else. Like I don't really know what's showing on here. I come here, if I drag my label, I can select show marked labels, and then it will show that sum of sales value on here. Another thing that you can do is actually add more contextual information on here. So if I want to show my sum of sales, but then I want to show my sum of profit as well underneath it, I can come in here and drag my profit and do sum of sales. And if I click on label, we see that sum of profit is now in here. But then if I bring in sum of sales on here as well, we see now I have both of them in my label. So it gives you the ability and flexibility to control your labels and do a lot of different things on here. So really quick, just a couple visualizations. The sky's the limit. Like I said, Tableau Public, there's a lot of stuff out there, but I really want to show you from a one-on-one best practice some of the things that you can do. And then just calculations. So right now what I did, everything was just summarized to use sum, but there's a lot of advanced calculations in Tableau. If you're familiar with Excel and creating calculations and stuff in Excel, could have a similar look and feel with some of the functions. And I think one great thing that doesn't necessarily get talked about is when you're creating calculated fields is the actual search option, and this drop down up here as well that kind of helps you understand where different calculations live at. So right now this is showing all. So if I want to do a count distinct, I know that I can actually search and type it in because I know what is available. But let's say I know I need some type of logical calculation or I need some type of mapping calculation. This drop down menu here breaks it up into different categories for you. So if I come in here and I want to look at a logical calculation. So basically, if I want to do an if statement, these are all the different functions that I can use in an if statement. Also, if I wanted to do, let's say, some aggregates, where we talked about with our measures, with our calculations, all of the different aggregates that are available in Tableau will belong in the aggregate section. So I think this is a really powerful feature that Tableau has because it kind of can help eliminate some of that search for different functions that are available that you might not necessarily know off the top of your head. So if you come in here, you can come in and just look at it and see, different functions. And another thing as well is that the calculations or how you would use it are also right here beside it. So it has a great description. It even gives you an example of how you would use it as well. So having that right here in your face is really, really powerful as you start to get deeper into the calculations and creating different things out there. So I really think this drop-down feature is really, really huge and really, really powerful for, as you start creating more advanced calculations. And then just talking about one-on-one components when it comes to Tableau, you have the ability to create filters. And basically what a filter is right now, this is a worksheet level filter if I was to drag something on here. And what a filter is just saying, hey, I only want to look at specific information in this worksheet. So in this example that I've been using is, hey, I only want to look at the sum of sales specifically for the state of Tennessee. If I were to drag the state on here, and let's say I only want to look at Tennessee, this will filter my worksheet specifically to Tennessee. It will not filter my entire data set to Tennessee, but it'll filter my entire worksheet. So this is understanding filters, filter context, a lot of different things on here, but there's ways to where your users and your audience can use filtering capabilities to limit or look at particular information that's relevant for them. And then you also have the concept of parameters. Won't necessarily go into it, but parameter gives you another way of creating some self-service capabilities. Actually, I'll create a parameter right quick. So a parameter is basically a field that is not connected to your data set. So the data set we have is an Excel file that I connected to. So now what I'm creating is a parameter that I can use to select and kind of give some self-service filtering flexibility with my visualizations. So if I did state parameter, and I just brought in from state, and now I have a parameter in the bottom. So as I was saying, this doesn't live in your data set. This lives outside of your data set. It's just a unique value that is not connected to anything. So if I were to come in here and actually look at my parameter, if I selected Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, Idaho, what have you, it does nothing to my worksheet because it's not connected to anything. It's an outside source that has been created just for later usage. What most people typically use this for is for calculations. So if I were to come in here and create a quick calculation where I just did a Boolean of state equals state parameter, and I can just call this state flag. So what this calculation is going to do is going to make a true false statement for me. So basically, if my parameter selection that I created here equals this, then true, else it will be false. And some simplification when it comes to calculations and performance is that sometimes you don't have to do the if this equals this criteria, then 1, else 0. If you're doing just a true false, sometimes you can do just what it is that I'm looking for, and it'll automatically convert to a true false Boolean calculation. And you know it's a true false Boolean calculation because you'll see true false in here underneath. So you know that that calculation is doing a Boolean correction, is only going to produce 2 values. And so now you can use this in your actual filter. If I were to come in here, go to state flag and drag this on here, we only have 2 options. One option being true, the other being false. So what's going to happen now, if we look at my parameter, we see that it says New Mexico. And if I select true, because I have a filter on this worksheet, we should now filter to only New Mexico. And so now if I were to select another one, it would filter to Tennessee. So again, this isn't connected to my worksheet. And if I had another worksheet that was using another data source, another data set, I could leverage the parameter in those individual worksheets and they can control individual worksheets. But I would have the same selection across my dashboard. So that's just a really high level way of using parameters. There's a lot of powerful things that you can do with parameters. And there's fantastic stuff that you do. So with wrapping up, I didn't go too much in Tableau Prep, but this is Tableau Prep. Tableau Prep is amazing. Basically, to talk about kind of the filters that we talked about. So sometimes you can create calculations and a lot of stuff on the fly. Sometimes your data, you might have a data set that has information at the daily level. So let's say you have a data set from January 1st, 2022 to 12/31/2023 that has a value for every single day. But if you're creating a visualization, you might have a visualization where you only need to see that information rolled up by the month. So I'm only going to show January, February, March, April, May, no, last 12 months. What you can do in Tableau Prep is actually aggregate that information up before it reaches Tableau. So instead of your data set being 365 rows, you actually have 12 rows because you have the information that you need and it's living in a actual data source that you have better performance and it will just be a lot cleaner because you did some of that prep. So that's the the preference of Tableau prep is you're prepping your data, you're cleaning your data, you're massaging it, you get into the format that you need so that your visualization is truly doing the data visualization stuff. Sometimes that's not always the case. Sometimes you do need different levels of granularity depending on what it is that you want to show. But I love the saying of go as far upstream as it makes sense. So if you can clean your stuff and get it into the format that you need before diving into Tableau desktop, then try and clean it up. That way, it just makes your visualizations a lot more smoother. And so in closing, we'll talk about different community initiatives. So if you want to get better in Tableau and you're like, man, I really want to look at different data sets. There's a lot of stuff out there that I want to connect with, but I don't have time to clean it up. I don't know where to find the data sets. I don't know where to really go. There are different community initiatives that you can do and can be a part of. So one is called Makeover Monday. If you're not familiar with it, Makeover Monday is a weekly project where they provide a data set and people in the community will do visualizations and calculations on top of the data set. So you come in here and click data sets, you will see the different data sets that are available. One thing that I recommend, especially if you're starting out or even trying to get better, is that there are a lot of data sets that are available that you don't necessarily have to clean. So even though it might not be 2023, you can click on 2018 and find a data set in here that's available for you to use. So I highly recommend using these as, inspiration comes in, or there's something I want to do in Tableau, come find these data sets, they're available. There's also another one called Viz Basics. Back to the basics. Hope I'm saying this right. Eric's gonna kill me. There we go. Back to Viz Basics. So this is one of my colleagues is running this particular challenge, but the concept of this is basically what it says, back to Viz Basics. So as I showed Tableau Public earlier, there are a lot of visualizations out there, a lot of complex stuff, a lot of things. They're like, man, how do I create this? The concept of back to Viz Basics is how do we create the basics and then build upon that? So you see the different challenges are build an area chart, build a multiple line chart, build a symbol chart. If we look at the 2022 challenges, we'll see build a scatter plot, dates and lines, so on and so forth. So it gives you the data sets, and then the challenges are how do we build this out and build upon that. So I really enjoy this challenge, back to Viz Basics. It just, especially starting out, or even if you've been in it for a while and you're like, man, how do I create this? Really great challenge. The data is available for you. And then the last one is Workout Wednesday, which is a popular one. And Workout Wednesday is similar as well, that they will have a lot of challenges for you. And some of these can be advanced, some of these can be a beginner as well. And then also, if you look at the bubble, it kind of tells you what it is that is trying to accomplish. So this is a great way if I only want to work on table calculations, or if I want to advance to do something intermediate, or if I want to do something beginner, I can look at what is available and can come into Workout Wednesday. Again, you could do it real time, but nothing's stopping you from going to historical challenges and getting better and looking at different things that are available. So Workout Wednesday is a great initiative. It's been around for a long time. Again, every Wednesday, there's something out there. And so I just highly recommend going to these different challenges. Publicly facing data available, and I think that will be all. So thanks I hope my internet did not go in and out and everything was good with that demo, and thank you all for listening to me.
Sekou, that was great. That was great. Thank you for doing that. A couple of points I would like to make. Sekou's going to talk about prep. I'm surprised you didn't talk about prepping data, and you can write that down.
Oh man, that was on my other desktop.
Okay, that's a weekly, it's the same sort of thing, a weekly challenge, but it's using Tableau Prep, and it's a great way to learn. Tableau Prep. Two additional things about Tableau Public. First of all, you said it was free, right? Free.
Yes.
It's a great resource. Keep in mind that anything you put up there is in the public domain. So I've seen people all of a sudden drop in, workbooks that might have confidential information. You really don't want to do that because it is in the public domain. You can also go out to that same community page, Sekou, that you were looking at on Tableau Public, and you can scroll down there, and there are data sources available on that site also. So if you're looking for clean data, you can go right on down and look at that. I think we're ready to go off. Yeah, there you go, prepping data.
Prepping data, and then I think Tableau public, where we at? Tableau public.
Find data, there you go, data samples, sample data. There you go. These are sample data sets that you can download and you can use right now. The first one is Superstore data that came with your copy of Tableau, but there are other data sets out there that you can just download and you can use them. So don't be afraid of going out there and just grabbing some data and having some fun with it. Okay. I think we're ready to go into breakout rooms.
No, not yet.
Oh,
Good,
I'm sorry. My bad. My bad.
Get me, man.
What's first?
So today's Kahoots, we are going to have a quiz written entirely by ChatGPT. So I went through and asked ChatGPT to write some questions and answers for several different topics. If you've not seen ChatGPT, let me go ahead and start that. This is what it looks like. You can go in and say, write 10 questions, true or false, multiple choice about mapping in Tableau public. And it timed out on me. So this is the problem with it. It really has a short window for connections. But it usually takes just a few minutes to come back and write some questions. And those are the answers to the things that it did. You can also flip it on its head and ask it to tell you why something is correct. So if you have a piece of code you don't understand or something, you can go put it in ChatGPT, and it will explain it to you. So if you've not played with it, it's really cool. It will write JavaScript and all that. So if you got a custom connector you're having trouble with, go see if you can put it in there and have ChatGPT write it for you. So let's go back to the quiz. And the code is 4369854 at kahoot.it. So what I did was just go through and select a few questions from each of the categories that I submitted questions on. Some of them are not totally correct. So your challenge today is finding the question or the answer that ChatGPT thinks is correct. Like I said, for some of them, I will share what it thinks is the answer. Okay, let's give it a few more seconds and then we'll get started. Looks like everybody may be in, so let's go. If you're still going, you can connect. You'll just be at a slight disadvantage for it. All right, Nashville Tug 2023, ready, set, go. Which of the following is not a feature of the data pane in Tableau desktop? Modeling data, creating calculated fields, sorting data, or grouping data. And ChatGPT says the correct answer is modeling data. Kindle is in the lead, and ChatGPT says that's correct because the data pane is used for connecting and joining data sources, creating calculated fields, and grouping and sorting data, and creating hierarchies. Modeling data typically refers to complex processes such as creating relationships between tables. And that's pretty good for a machine. So, which of the following is not a feature of the data pane in Tableau desktop? Creating neural networks, filtering data, blending data, or creating a decision tree. So for this topic, it used the same question several times with different answers. So it thought creating decision trees was the best answer. And Pam has taken the lead. So let's see what it says about this. It says, although Tableau Desktop has some machine learning capabilities, such as creating a neural network, it is not primarily designed for building decision trees. This task was typically be performed by specialized software and tools designed for machine learning and data analysis. But if you go to the Tableau website and search for neural network, you'll get this answer. To run a neural network model in Tableau, load the data in Tableau, then create a connection to a neural network server. Tableau can connect to a number of different neural network servers. So I don't know if it saw that and thought that it did neural networks or what, but not really the right answer, or the most totally correct answer. All right, let's go. Which of the following is not a Tableau server authorization method? Role-based security, column-based level security, object level security, or row level security? All right, this one was pretty obvious. There is no object level security in Tableau that I'm aware of. So Aditi, I hope I got that right, is in the lead. Which of the following is not an operation that occurs in Tableau's order of operations? Sorting, filtering, grouping, and indexing. And I'm sure Jim knows the answer to this. So you get more points for how quickly you answer the correct answer. All right, indexing is the correct answer. And now the order of operations in Tableau is determined by the order of fields in the data pane, true or false. Correct answer is false. So yeah, I'm not aware that anything in the data pane has that influence on the order of operations. All right, Pam has taken the lead again. All right, which of the following is not a type of Tableau calculation that can be used in a visualization? Table calculations, aggregate, filter, or level of detail expressions. 3 of them can be used in a calculation, 1 of them cannot. Correct answer is a filter. Can't use a filter in a calculation. And Pam is still in the lead. All right, coming into the finish, Tableau Prep can be used to schedule data refreshes for use in Tableau. Can you schedule a data refresh with Tableau Prep in Tableau? True or false? And ChatGPT says the answer is true, and it's mostly true. But here's its answer. One of the features of Tableau Prep is the ability to schedule data refreshes, which allows users to automatically refresh their data source in a set. That's sort of saying the answer is true because it's true. It's not really a good justification of why it's true. But I'll add this caveat. I'm pretty sure this only works if you can publish the flow from prep to a server. And I'm pretty sure that requires the data management piece. So, all right, let's see who is on top. Lindsay, you came in from behind. Way to go, girl. All right. So I think the way we're doing this is these 3 people, if you come to the next month's data night out, you have the first choice of things from the swag table. So please come join us at Miller's Ale House in Cool Springs. It's near the Target off Mallory Lane, I believe. So we have a private room with a fireplace and all that sort of stuff. So hopefully it'll be a nice evening and a nice get together from 4 to 7. All right, thanks everyone.
I think that's becoming known as Lindsay's swag closet. That she is the procurer and the keeper of the swag. So if you need some swag, I'd get to know Lindsay real soon and real quick. And
Yeah,
but
and I
thank
had
you for
swag
doing
for
that, Lindsay, because
I had
it's a
swag
lot
from
of work.
the January and the February meeting. So come in March and we'll deliver it all to you.
Plenty of
Okay,
stuff.
very good. Now we're ready for breakout rooms, right, Alyssa? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, there's going to be 3 breakout rooms, or you can stay right where you are. Okay, Sekou has a breakout room, and if you just go down to the bottom of the screen, you'll see a breakout room icon there. Sekou's going to talk about Tableau prep. Eric's going to talk about security, and I'm going to talk about the order of operation and LOD expressions. So I'll see you there. And if you stay in this current room, Alyssa's going to talk about year-over-year calculations and year-to-date calculations. So I hope to see you there. I'm going to my room now. Bye.
And as a reminder, if you stay here, you're stuck with me. So. We'll give everybody a minute to bail. All right, hopefully you guys are all here for the date calculation session. Hopefully. All right. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to kind of give you a show of what we're going to be going over today. It is essentially going to allow us to make our date selections a little bit more user-friendly. There's a lot of different ways to do this. Typically what I found is users just want a very simple, I want to compare current month to prior month. I want to compare current month to the current month in the prior year, quarter over quarter, year to date, rolling 12. They just want to be able to make quick parameter selections. They don't want to have to think about, I've worked with a lot of sales teams, and it's always funny where they want rolling 12 months of data, but they think that rolling 12 months is January to January or February to February, when in fact it should be February to January or January to December. So we kind of take some of the complexity and guesswork around some of these calculations for our end users by taking them upon ourselves. I'm going to walk you guys through kind of how I set this up and how I make it user friendly. Feel free to be really interactive with this. If you want to chat comments, or if you just want to unmute yourself and ask questions, definitely feel free. This can be as interactive as you guys want it to be. So I have just a sample workbook here that's using my Superstore data. So you guys should all have access to this, provided you have access to Tableau. This is Tableau's basic data source. The very first thing that I want to do to build out my date selections is I want to be able to allow the user to select what time period they're actually looking at. So for instance, if they only want to see December through the 14th, allowing them to select and allow that to change my date selections that I'm looking at. So to create this date parameter, what I'm going to do in my workbook here is I'm going to create a parameter. I'm going to call this select date. I'm going to make it a date type. And I can see here that my current value is today's date, which is fine and well for today. But what happens tomorrow when a user opens this and they actually want it to show a current value of tomorrow's date? One of the really cool things you can do in Tableau is you can actually set this value when workbook opens off of a field in your data. And I don't really have a field in my data yet that I can use, but what I can do is I can go ahead and create this parameter. And what I can do is I can create a calculated field that I can then reference as I edit my parameter. And I'm just going to call this field max date. Typically, when you're looking at a date calculation like this, where you just want the maximum date that's available across the entire data set, you're going to use a level of detail calculation called fixed. And I just want to fix across my entire data set. Give me the maximum date that's available in my data. So fixed max, and I'm going to use my ship date. So now that I have this calculated field, I can take a look at what this actually looks like in my data, drag it onto my row shelf. I want to look at my exact date, and I can see that my max date in my data, while today is 2/8, my data actually only goes through 1/5/2023. So setting this off of just today's default date is not a good option for my users. To make it even more complicated, what if, for instance, my users only wanted this to default to dates that had complete time periods? So my users, for instance, only want to see complete months worth of data. I can actually update this max date calculation based off of kind of the date trunk features that are available in Tableau desktop. So you can see here, I've got this same max date calculation, but I'm doing it conditionally. So if the month of my max date is greater than the month of my ship date, then that's the month I want to include. So if I bring this in and I update that calculation to be conditional, to look at the max date of the most completed month, and I apply that, you'll see that rather than it being the most recent date of my data, 1/5, I've actually limited my results to actually backtrack to the most recent completed month. Month is subjective. You could just as easily do week. You could just as easily do quarter. It's really dependent on how your users are going to interact with the data and the dashboards. So now I need to actually apply this created field to my parameter itself. So if I go into my edit parameter options here, my current value, I actually want to drop this down, and you'll see that I now have the option to set the value when the workbook opens to that max date calculated field. And you'll see that it updates the current value to that calculated field result. So that's kind of my first step, allowing my users to select what date they want to drive these current versus prior period calculations off of. The next thing I need to do is actually give them the periods that they can select. And again, talk to your users, find out how they're going to use this data, find out what comparisons they're making most frequently, and drive your selections off of that. To do this, I'm going to create another parameter, and I'm going to call this parameter date selection options. Float is fine. I'm going to go ahead and just leave it as a float value, but I want to kind of determine what my users are going to select by giving them a drop-down list. For simplicity's sake, and since we have to create all these calculations, we're going to keep it really short today. We're going to allow them to select current month versus prior month. We are going to allow them to select current month versus the same month prior year. So my first option is January versus December. My second option is January of 2023 versus January of 2022. And I'll show you guys what that looks like in the data in just a moment. And then my third option, for simplicity's sake, we're going to do current year to date versus prior year to date. So now that I have these options, I'm going to show this parameter here. These are the options that my users can select to drive the date calculations that we're going to use in our workbook. I always like to drag my date field onto my view and use that to make sure I'm getting my date calculations right. The date calculations in Tableau are one of the trickiest calculations I've had to learn. Do I use date part or date parse? Do I use date trunk? And if I use date trunk, what am I going to get? So by adding these dates to my view, I actually see how they're working within my dashboard. And I'm a visual person. It's why I like Tableau. So we're going to visualize what our date calculations are actually doing. The first field that we're going to create is going to be a field that identifies our current period. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a calculated field here. And I'm going to call it current period. This is just going to be a Boolean field. It's going to return true or false. true if that date falls within the current period, false if it does not. Very simple. And what we're going to do is we're going to reference this date selection option here. We're going to reference our selected date, and we're going to reference the date that we're trying to filter. So this ship date field. So we got a lot of moving pieces here. Again, feel free to jump in if you've got any questions. So again, just referencing that parameter. So essentially a case statement is similar to if, a little bit cleaner. I'm a little OCD. I like case statements when I can use them. When my parameter option is 1, so if you remember correctly, we had this set as a float value. So when it's 1, we want to show our current period as the current month. This is where those date calculations come in handy in Tableau. If you are not familiar with the date calculations, as Sekou was showing earlier, there's all of this help here. I can look at my date, my different date calculations, date part, date parse, date trunc. We're going to be using this date trunc formula here, where essentially we want to say, we want to truncate our date to whatever time period is in our parameter. So for instance, current month, we want to truncate to the month level. And the date that we are truncating is going to be the date in our data that we're referencing. So in this case, we're going to reference the ship date. So when the date trunc, so when the month of the ship date equals the date trunc month of our select date parameter here, then we want it to be true. And again, this is a Boolean value. We don't need to specify if, then, else. And I can kind of show you what this looks like here. Oh, when, one, then. Proper syntax is important. So this is kind of our first parameter option to determine that current month period. If I apply this and then I drag it onto my view here, this is where you can start to see where this comes in handy, where I've got my December 2022, my current period is identified as true. If I had somehow messed this up, it would be visible there. It just makes it a little bit easier. One thing I always like to double check. So my users told me they only wanted full months worth of data, but I could totally see that I would have users coming in here and potentially selecting the middle of the month just to keep me on my toes. So for instance, if we switch this up and we start looking at this by day, you'll see that my select date is through the end of the month. Everything is true. But what happens if I have a user come in here and go rogue and select 12/14? They don't want to see 12/15 on. They only want to see through 12/14 for the current month. So to do that, I actually need to add some additional logic to my case statement, where I want the month of my ship date to equal the month of my selected date parameter. But I also want the ship date itself to be less than or equal to the selected date parameter. So now you can see when I apply this calculation, rather than showing the entire month, even though our selected date is through 12/14, now my current period filter has excluded all of these additional days that are past my selected date parameter. So you've got to kind of think how your users are going to use this, limit as much as possible, but there are definitely ways to handle different selection options within your calculated field. I'm going to go ahead and set this back to month. I'm going to go ahead and you can see here, I'm going to set my parameter back to my ending period here. Now we're officially back to our December 2022 current period. My next selection is actually super easy for the current period because it's essentially comparing the exact same period to just a different prior period. So guess and check, copy and paste. This is going to be exactly the same for current month versus current month prior year. The next item that we're going to do is year to date. So my third option is year to date. This actually gets pretty simple too, here where we were truncating on the month. Now I want to look at the year. I want to compare my current year. So date trunc, year of my ship date equals the date trunc, year of my selected date. But again, just like we had with the months, we also want to limit any responses for any mid-period selections on our date selection parameter so that we don't accidentally include periods that occurred after our selected date. So we're going to go ahead and toss that in as well. So now when I apply this, you'll see that I've got my current month is now December 2022. But if I select year to date, I'm now going to see that my true values show January through December of 2022. If I switch this up and say I want to look November year to date, as I make this selection, December 2022 falls out of my current period. So that's going to be our current period selections. Again, you can get as complex with as many options as you want. You can do the same setup for quarters. You can do the same setup for weeks. Just depends on how many options you want to give your end users. But that date trunk formula really comes in handy. Now we need to do our prior periods. So I'm going to go ahead and set my parameter back to current month versus prior month. This is where we are going to utilize that date trunk function like we did for current period, but we're also going to toss in a new calculation called date add. And what that's going to allow us to do is offset our current period selected date by X number of whatever time period we're looking at. So I've got my current period. I'm going to create a new calculated field, and I'm going to call this calculated field prior period. I'm going to reference that same parameter, my date selection options, when one, then. So this is where we're going to reference that date trunk again. So date trunk, we're looking at month in our reference parameter here, and we're using our ship date field. We want to include anything in the prior period where it's offset by 1 month. So include any ship dates that are in the month of, say, October, because our selected date is 11/30. I'm going to go ahead and set that back to December. So our current period is December 2022. Our prior month is going to be November 2022. So to do that, we're going to utilize a new date function called date add. And essentially what this allows you to do, we look at our little cheater tips here. Date add allows you to offset by any given interval a specific date. So we want to offset 1 month because that's our parameter option there. We want to offset it by 1 because we just want the prior month. So 1 is our interval. And then the date that we're kind of offsetting from is that select date parameter. Just like with the current period, we also want to make sure that any of the ship dates that we're including don't occur after our parameter selection. So similar to that December 14th selection. So what we're going to do here is we're going to reference that same ship date, and we want it to be less than or equal to. And previously what we did was we looked at just the selected date. But the problem with that is we've actually offset the selected date by 1 month. So we're going to counteract that by taking the same calculation here, but we need to truncate that selected date now to just the month level. So now, and it'll probably be easier if I show you what this looks like on our little view here. Oh, and there we go. So now if I pull in this prior period and we look at, oh, hold on 1 second. Date trunk of month equals date add month. Oh, and we need to, again, as I mentioned, truncate this to the month level. So again, our month of our selected date, add an extra parenthesis there. Apply. And now what we want to do is we want to make sure that our prior period is actually coming through as expected. So you can see here, I've accidentally offset plus 1 month. So my prior month is actually showing as forward 1 month. To offset that, I need to do -1 for my interval. And you will now see that my current period, my current period column here is showing as true for December 2022. My prior period is going to be the prior month of November 2022. We're going to do something very similar for our second option. Our second option is going to compare our current month versus the current month in the prior year. So to do this, we actually need to offset an entire year. So we're going to actually just copy and paste this same function. But rather than offsetting just 1 month, we're going to offset 12 months. So 1 year prior. So now when I apply this, I'm going to go ahead and close this. Previously, we were looking at just 1 month prior. When I make my second parameter selection, you'll see that my true value is actually now looking 1 year prior to December 2021. If I want to go ahead and do my last period selection here, it is going to be the prior year to date. So again, we're going to be looking at that date trunc function. Oops. For a year, because we want the prior year to date of the ship date. Oops. And we want that to equal the prior year. So we're going to do that date add function instead of reducing everything by 1 month or by 12 months. We just want the year minus 1 of the year of our selected date. Date. There we go. And then again, we want to make sure that we've offset our ship date so that we're not including ship dates that happened after our selected parameter date. And again, setting everything to year. Oh, no, sorry. So now when I select year to date, what you're going to see is we've got January to December 2022 is year to date. If we wanted to make that more interesting, we can go back to November. And then in our prior period, what you're going to see is, currently, if we look at this, we're including December 2021. We don't actually want to include December 2021. We just want to include there we go. That'll work for now. Oh. We just want to include through November, which of course that's not working as expected. For the sake of time, I do want to show you guys really quick how you can reference these in formulas. So date views are really cool in and of themselves, but really where the value comes in is being able to reference these in calculations and comparing your metrics time period over time period. And that really comes down to creating more calculated fields where we want to do maybe current period quantity, and we're going to reference that current period field that we created. So if in the current period, then quantity end. I'm going to show you guys really quick how that's working. So we have all of these quantities over time, but our current period quantity is actually only going to show the units associated with that current period. We can do the same thing for prior period. We duplicate this really quick. And do prior period quantity and pull that in. You'll see that this is going to allow us to compare the 1,700 units in November to the 1,200 units in October. And really where this becomes powerful is I can now pull these into views. I can add a variance calculation. So quantity variance, where I've got my sum of my current period quantity minus the sum of my prior period quantity. And I can now pull all of these in as KPIs. And that variance calculation is really where these dynamic dates shine, because they're going to give you the possibility of comparing two different time periods that your users have complete control over very easily. So I can compare, my current month versus my prior month as compared to my current month versus the same month last year as compared to year to date. So it just gives your users a lot of different flexibility in how they're looking and comparing their data. That was a lot to throw at you guys all at once. I did want to leave a few minutes for questions. We'll have to bring everybody back from the main group in about 4 minutes. So are there any questions, comments, thoughts?
So what would be that last when statement? I think it wasn't working in the end.
Oh, hold on. We're going to cheat and steal it from here. So we're going to take this period, edit. So now when we look at this for year to date, that last one, so here we've now got December 2021 as false. This is what happens when you try to do things quickly on the fly. That last one, it's going to take the year of the ship date equals the year -1 of the selected date, and your ship date needs to be less than the year -1 of the selected date. So now we've got December 2021 excluded because our select date is 11/30. Does that help? Sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. That's partially why this view is ugly. I would never show it to any of my customers, but as you're developing and trying to figure out what dates to include or exclude, this can be really helpful. Any other questions, thoughts?
Alyssa, this is Tony or Anthony Villanueva. I was just curious on the very initial calculation, you used a fixed LOD for the max date.
Yep.
What would have happened if you didn't use the fixed? Would you be able to get the max date without that? Or would there be some unanticipated things happen?
There can definitely be some unanticipated things that happen. Especially as you're applying filters. So if we think through like Tableau's order of operations, depending on when you want your filters applied, can impact your max calculations. So for instance, if I just did, oops, keeps opening on the wrong screen, max date of max ship date was what we were using.
Mm-hmm.
That can work. So I mean, that works, but as you apply filters, so for instance, if I'm filtering to a specific order ID, you'll see that that actually impacts, my date, because I've now applied a filter that I may not actually want impacting my parameter
Gotcha.
itself.
That makes sense. Okay. Yeah. Thanks so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, no problem. We can pull that other max date field in too, and just show you really quick.
Yeah.
So that one is still showing my
The
full
right max date, right?
So it all depends on your intentions. If you
Yeah.
want your max date to change,
Right.
don't need to use LOD. I
Okay.
will say one of the really sad things, even if I apply filters, you'll see that this date parameter, it's very specific. It's the date that is available when the workbook opens.
Mhm.
So if it's got users applying filters as they're working in the workbook, it's not going to pick up the new max dates based on those filters. Right. So. All right, if there's no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and drag everybody back from the breakout room.
Oh, I did have one more question.
Oh, sure.
If possible. This is like a little off topic, but still dates. So if it doesn't make sense now, just let me know. But one thing I noticed with my dates is I think I have, maybe it's because I have a month variable and a year variable, and sometimes the year is like automatically as like filtered, or the year Tableau decides is 1900 or something. Have you seen that?
Yeah, and sometimes it depends on your data source as well. So if you've got like some weird date formats, sometimes just converting to a date field in Tableau doesn't always work. Sometimes you've got to create a calculated field to actually parse out the correct pieces of your date.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Welcome back, everybody.
Hello. Everybody came back muted.
We made it back. Did
I say
everybody
I-
have a good time? Lindsay played Stump Jim, and it worked pretty good.
She gets bonus points for that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Sekou, did you have people join you there for Tableau prep?
Yeah, I'm gonna say I had the best room out of everybody. You know, no bias or anything there. No, we did. We had some people come in. It was pretty good.
That's cool. That's cool. Alyssa, a lot of people doing year-over-year calculations?
I hope they learned something. We walked through month over month, quarters, year over year, all kinds of fun stuff. So
Okay, great. Eric, how about your room?
Yeah, we had some good questions and new people, and old people. So that was good.
Okay, well, here's the thing, and I know there's only a few people there. Just by show of hands, wave or put a thumbs up or something. Would you do this again? Our breakout
Yes.
room's a good idea. It's okay to say no. I don't really think it worked, but because literally we're trying to figure out the best format and how often to do it, how frequent to do it. So the other thing we'd really like to do is get everybody live and actually do it live. Have different tables and have different places that people could go to. So
I
if we
would
could-
say really quick, if I can jump in,
yes, ma'am.
part of the email invites that we send out to you guys, we've been trying to include like surveys. So like today's breakout rooms, we gave everybody like an option of 10 different topics that we were gonna like specify our breakout rooms for, but only like 4 people took the survey. So are those working, not working? Do people not like surveys?
I never see them. I think they get filtered by my junk email filters.
Oh, really?
And
Yeah,
they're
I
part of
know.
the-
didn't see it till today either.
I've
Oh,
never
okay.
seen one.
Good to know.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Okay,
had to
well-
rescue mine from the quarantine.
Okay. Well, we'll have to. We didn't know that.
Might
We'll
need,
learn-
maybe Bevy will have a feature like that we can use. That won't be
Yeah.
quarantined.
Yeah. One can only hope.
Yep.
One can only hope. Okay, very good. Anybody have anything they want to say before we sign off for the day?
What's the date of the next in-person, did you say?
Eric?
It is Miller's Ale House, and it's down in Cool Springs, in between Target and the mall on Mallory Lane.
What
And
day?
what's the date of it?
Oh, it's a month from today, like March
March 8th.
8th.
Okay. Okay, well, we hope to see you all there. I hope to make one. Seems like every time we have a live meeting, I get sick. Is what it boils down to.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, very good. See y'all.
Thank you
Thanks,
all.
everybody.
Be
Bye.
safe.
Thank you.
Okay, bye now.
Bye.